Huh? Oh. Well, I was going to say hello to all the people out there on the cable network, whatever it is. In response to some of the inquiries and letters we received, I'd like to say if some of you, maybe half of you, would be a little more, shall we say, forthcoming, a little more charitable in the monies that you should be sending into the program, then as per some of the requests, I am going to try and respond in my part of the show to these Kyroots in a less passionate, sort of a dull, monotone, and undemonstrative fashion. Or withal, if some of you, the other part, who've written other ways, if you will send in money, then I'll in fact talk louder and get some new gestures. It's up to you. It's like a vote. It's only $5 a call if you'll call the 900 number there on the screen. It's actually $50, but they won't know it till they get their bill. All right, here we go. Here we go, me trying to say something about these. And Kyroots said, showing strong, real signs of stamina and determination, the man stood tall and declared, I will not be placated. He did later, however, agree to be embroidered and partially embalmed. Some of the early ones in the Kyroots, I don't know why it goes this way. Maybe we're just not warmed up, but some of them, the early ones, I don't know what to say about them. They seem so concise, so direct and to the point, so absolutely beyond comprehension. No, I didn't know. Well, think about the human. If you aspire to anything that might fit into strong signs of stamina, we're not talking physical now, the humankind, of stamina and determination, what would be one of the things that a man should be saying, even if he didn't use the sissy kind of saying word placated? But he would be saying, I shall not be satisfied. I shall not stop here. But he will agree to other things. And Kyroots said, when trapped, humans will eat their own feet. Do notice, as opposed to summary accepted, not just reports, but I guess ideas of animals being trapped, it does not say that a human will chew off his foot. It says a human will eat his feet. That doesn't sound anywhere close to secondary incest and the healthy aspects of cannibalism. When in doubt, when a man cannot get his hands intellectual on his own family, when a man cannot consume his fellow man, when a man does not have his own holy book somewhere to plagiarize, what will he do? If he's really pushed, he'll wander off by himself in the cave and think, my God, it's Gabriel's grandson is talking to me. That's true. That's eating your own foot. Well, all right. If you're not going to cooperate, I'm going to pick out the one even nobody requested about the merry-go-round going fast enough to begin to treat itself. I'll read this one, but Matt did a first-class job. One man sent his thoughts off to see what new they could discover. And when they returned, they gave the report. In these words, they said, well, nothing special. And he said, good thoughts, good boy. Well, does people send to... We'll go back to several from the last couple of nights. Do people actually go off to college to learn anything? Oh, sure they do. I know. Do people send their children off to college, hope that they'll learn something? Well, that's even a surer bet, right? Yeah. People say, they might not use those words, but I would like to send my thoughts out. I'd like to explore that which I have not previously explored. And they will, as long as they go, well, I will go off and explore that which I have not previously explored. And after having said that, we'll go right where they've always gone. In the show business of life, those of you who are not that familiar with the Wagnerian, if not Freudian aspect of the Borscht Belt, the act doesn't count. It's the intro. Because if the intro is long enough, you don't have to do anything. It's like having the world's longest preface to your book. Or if it doesn't get down to actual pen and paper, it's the people, everyone knows this, it's taken as some sort of sarcastic joke, or a little joke about the guy that says, I'm still working on my novel, and somebody at the bar says, Jesus, you've been on that thing 20 years. And went, yes, I approve of perseverance. Now the point is, he never gets it through. When are you going to send it to a publisher? Well, whenever I get through. And somebody probably here and there will finally suspect, just momentarily, because it's like looking in a mirror that has the potential to blow up Bimini. But here and there, probably somebody goes, wait a minute. He's not finishing that on purpose, because if he doesn't finish it, he can't ever send it in and get rejected. Those of you that like to go to the Reader's Digest School of Psychology. And it's not that simple, because it's not worthy of any kind of attack. You could take that, and I'm sure it's been done, and say that people who will never complete a symphony, therefore, if they always say that they are actively working on it, then at least they're not confronted with having to submit it to the, I started to say the artistic powers that be in St. Paul, but then I figured a bunch of you would laugh and think, artistic powers that be in St. Paul. Well, it's cold up there. If he never submits it, they cannot send it back and go, you call that a symphony? See? A man sends his thoughts off. Yes, I'd like to consider something new. Did I make it too complicated, or does everyone already understand? A man could say, well, I'd like to expand my cultural horizons, and a Catholic will go to a Southern Baptist church. How about that? And he'll say, I am going there just to experience something new, because even though I am satisfied with my religion, a large portion of the world are Protestants, and at least in this country, the largest portion of the Protestants are Baptists, so I'll go. And what does he do? He'll go to have new ideas, like turn my mind out to new pastures, and he cannot help it. What will he do? Criticize what's going on. If you find that word too harsh, you're dumb. Okay, if you find it too harsh, he will compare. And that's not new discoveries. If you compare, well, what are they doing now? Why are they singing songs out loud? Why do they have drums in church? Why are the ministers wearing suits? Where are their dresses? What's wrong with these people? So this guy sends his mind off. Go out. It's Isabel. I guess his mind's a little uncertain. All right, Ferdinand too, and he says, go out and discover new worlds. And it's like Columbus goes off and comes back, and he says, what'd you find? You go, well, it's hardly worth talking about. And they go, phew. Good explorer, good boy. I try to consider another view of this. I try to consider, perhaps I am in the wrong religion. Nah. But see, I drug it out for dramatic effect. There's somebody say, well, I've been thinking about my ideas about sexual morality or politics. And I try to consider that there are large numbers of people, me being a nice conservative, there are large numbers of people who are very liberal. And, they could have something. I could be wrong. No. See, that was more like it. But I drew it out. I waited a couple of seconds the first time. It's what caught you off guard to give it that nice dramatic effect. See, the man's thoughts didn't have to go off long. Columbus stayed gone a long time, because that's the way things are in the physical world. That's why they're cheap allegories for the real world. That is what I'm talking about. It's people like Isabel and Ferdinand, of course, inbreeding had a lot, I'm sure, to do with that at the physical level. But they had to send him off because they couldn't do it metaphorically. They couldn't sit there and do all this, so they had to send him off and say, all right, go find us some new worlds. He went off the first time. What was it? He was gone. Well, hell, I know it was way over 2 or 3 weeks. He went off and then came back, and they said, all right, what'd you do? And he went, well, see, that's a poor excuse for a metaphor. That's why a good revolutionist doesn't have to leave town. Because you're real good, you don't have to leave the room. I wonder if I should have said that. Now somebody out there in the audience who's getting old and worn out, maybe doesn't have money, or trying to talk their wife out of going on trips, is going to write and say, how? How can I convince my wife that only intelligent, only dumb people travel? This letter came into the program. I used to have some respect for television until I accidentally saw your show. That was one. Well, I assume everyone was here. You remember the last time there was a guy that named his dog Voltaire because He shed so much. You remember that? But then he explained further what it was, that he was of the persuasion, he was trying, that he would not give anything, or he didn't like to use names, put names on things that had any specific, or even any particular relationship to what they were or what they did. He said that he was specifically trying to teach his mind a certain lesson about the nature of words. You all remember that. If you don't, now you've heard it. Charge those people twice. So it was just simply, one guy liked to probably call himself old Formica brain, and he must have known the guy with the dog named Voltaire. See, you were supposed to have been here and remembered the last time to think, you know, is that just a cheap joke? Because a lot of you kind of laughed when the guy called himself old Formica brain. But, you know, we're sure not trying to make a living as a comedian. We're all done for. It's not just funny because, see, then the next part says, as you might suspect, he probably knew the guy with the dog named Voltaire, because then you got to figure, why would somebody do that? Don't everybody answer. See, if you answer a dangerous question like that, why would somebody call themselves privately old Formica brain? If you're tempted to answer, don't. Everybody understands that, right? I mean, there you are, a nice young strapling of a boy or girl, the nice young person you are, and you're out there out in that great goof field, well, just off to the side of the real goof field, and it's dark, getting dangerous, late at night, as it always is, and you're trying to hitchhike. What else to do? And every car that stops, you look in and you say, you want to be sure, are you a mass murderer? And damn, you stand there all night and you can't even find one. So some things don't ask. You can be disappointed. And Kyroots said, it was a proverb update was what it was. I assume you caught on. It went, you can catch more flies with hormones than honey, which is an update of the old one, see. But then he went on to even expand on that using the big H, and as a matter of fact, you can catch more of anything. I guess we could stay here a long time because, well, it's modern enough if you want to take what would appear to be it's normally blamed on the Freudian times of how strong sex is, and all you've got to do is be able to read between their togas as far back as what the Greeks were saying. It's nothing new, but people keep trying to come up with new versions of me suspecteth that sex may have something to do with what's going on here. You know, every now and then somebody, I know they stole it from Kyroots, but somebody will say, I went out, not being interested in such affairs, and I went out and I looked at this wild college football game, all the people there drunk and screaming and waving banners. And I thought, there is more going on here than simply men tossing a ball around. There is some sort of sexual symbolism here. They think it's something new. Kyroots kind of wrapped it up. It's a very few words here. See, the original is you can catch more flies with honey than vinegar. And Jesus, God, that's older than we are. Kyroots updated to start with, you can catch more flies with hormones than honey, and then expanded the whole thing. You can catch more of anything. What holds the primary world together? And don't worry about subconscious sexual submerged urges that come out in other ways. They come out in other ways because people are dumb and call them other ways. And of course, I say dumb. That's part of the secondary world's job, is to make things sound better. Since nobody requested that one last time, I'll request it myself. It was the addendum to one Kyroots that was, after all, part of the secondary world's job, is to make things sound better. Now, we can describe it other ways, which I'm sure we have, but you cannot deny that once you see it. If nothing else, if you see something going on and you thought, well, wait a minute, we have all the ordinary people, the Philistines, those of limited sight, and they keep calling something so-and-so, and it's not. It's plainly not. They say this is the purpose or this is what we're after, and they're not. But if you leave it there, then all you've done is been offered the job of being moved up from cleaning toilets to being critic. And you probably didn't even have the wherewithal of the kid in that Kyroots to say, wait a minute, let me be sure I understand this. But if you think that there is some area of criticism that, wait a minute, people continue to call such and such. People say they're going out to a sporting event and the only reason they go to the game is they love football. And I see without any doubt that part of the reason people go out there is to be around other people, just to be in a crowd. That by God, if Tennessee and Alabama was playing, and this guy who swears that he just footballs his life, if we clean that stadium out, nobody at the park, just the players, the referees, all right, maybe one guy to furnish beer and hot dogs, but nobody else. He gets the 50-yard line, parked right up next to the gate. Would he enjoy the game? The answer is no. And so the guy thinks, see, there's some kind of subliminal, they're dumb, they won't admit it, or they're too stupid to know it. They're not supposed to know it. You could even tell some of the people, if they were sober enough, well, maybe not the ones from Alabama, but the ones from Tennessee at least. You can say, do you realize that it's some kind of social, it's some kind of herd attraction that's part of the fun of being here? Of course, don't tell that to people going to the symphony, because they'd say, here, enough of this is enough. Maybe them, but no. How about us, the exceptions? I know. But you might get somebody to go, well, you're right. It's part of the thrill of the crowd. That's part of it. And a more complex view of the same guy, if he still hadn't given his own brain the red ass, would go, part of it, hell, that's all of it. Because I can prove it if I start keeping everyone away from the game but you. Would you come to the game? And the truth is, after a week or two, no, he would not. No matter what he says, he would stay home if it came to that and invite some of his friends over to watch it on TV. And so the person doing all this, ordinary person, say, all right, it's wrong, it's very limited, to say the least, for this guy to say it could be part of it. It's not part of it, it's all of it. But that's no attack. You hadn't caught anybody at anything. It's part of the secondary world's job. It's part of being civilized job, which if you're civilized, you're part of the secondary world. You're working for it. Part of it is to make things sound better. Oh, my uncle, he passed away. He passed what? I mean, you remember you used to eat a lot of chili, and you thought, oh. Well, people make jokes about that, and people even get serious about it. Like, something's wrong with life, we ought to call a spade a spade. Of course, that's always a man that's got a bad hand. Part of secondary world's job, well, first off, of course, is to call things things. Because the primary can't call them anything. You go, help us down here. You remember that one? The guy said, what ho, who said that? And they said, help. It wasn't us, because we can't talk. But they would like to. If they could, what's the first thing they'd say? Well, you got your choice. If the primary world could talk, it'd either be help or shit. All right, damn. Well, it could be what? Which is the same thing. So it's not that there's anything wrong. It's part of the secondary world job to call things in such a way that they sound better once they've called them one thing, because whatever they call them to start with, it's eventually not going to sound good to somebody. If you start off and you called, I assure you, originally paper cuts or serious flesh wounds from a 45, either one of the two were originally called something. I don't know this for a fact. I did not major in anthropology. But I can assure you they were originally called something like cream puff or a cotton bandage or a swab. Right? But eventually it begins to sound a little rougher. And then they have to change it. And it gets up to really something shocking. Instead of the kids after thousands of years ringing and saying, oh, I was trying to mail Uncle Charlie my envelope with my school picture and I got a swab on my finger. It finally got to the point that enough's enough, and they said, I got a paper cut. People would faint and adults would get sick. That's part of the secondary world job. But eventually, then it changes again. Kyroots went past all that. Now back to what we was. You can catch more flies with hormones than even honey, which seemed to be the apex in the sense of the original proverb of you can catch more so-and-so, more flies or whatever it was, with honey than vinegar. That sounds wise, and people go, well, let's see, I don't have anything better to do. I'll write that down. That's heavy philosophical material. Kyroots points out that forget honey, sugar, sweet and low, cream-filled donuts. You can catch more flies with hormones than any of those. And then after a couple of lines there, he went on to point out, hey, you can catch more of anything. So don't consider, well, some people will not face up to what's going on, at least partially. Was that person also embroidered or just, no, they just partially, they cannot fully face up to it. That means one thing. Yes, they're dumb. No, it means they're alive and civilized. They're not supposed to face up to something. Anybody can call making love screwing. See, I did it. That doesn't prove anything. You could take somebody from the Rothschild family. You could take Queen, what's her name, of the Netherlands? Fine-looking woman, striking-looking woman, as they say in Alabama. A fine figure of a woman. You could take her cousin, who I happen to know went to a very nice school, and just because the Queen's cousin, Beatrice's cousin, would always say things like, well, yes, in poetic fashion refer to making love. If you challenged her, got a few beers in her, she'd say, screwing. But what would that prove? And people think, well, people should call things what they are. If you do, then you got to change it. This is beyond all change. That you can catch more of anything with hormones. The trick is always being that once you understand that, then this was useless, because then the question is, you can catch more of hormones than anything compared to what? Compared to nothing. And then you can say, well, it doesn't make any sense. Well, you got your choice, of course. It makes no sense, or it makes every possible sense. And in either case, you say, well, where do you go from here? It's like they stopped the merry-go-round and so told everybody, well, I'm sorry, you got to get off. And you think, well, I'm not dead yet, physically. I'm sorry, you got to leave. See? Well, somebody could nod like, well, yeah, I see. Now, of course, if that happened, then here's all you got to do. You and a few of the people will get together, and now the merry-go-round is stopped. So what you do is you rename stopped. The movement of the merry-go-round seems to be seriously ill. My merry-go-round passed away. Passed away. So as long as you can rename it, it's not dead. But at the same time, you understand that is a kind of eternal karma. That's a kind of eternal life. That is the healthy aspect of secondary incest and cannibalism. There is no end to it, and yet it's the very thing that ordinary, civilized, intelligent people will denounce. No, we should not be dealing in those kind of euphemisms. We should be more clear and direct in our thinking and just say that what's what. If somebody's dead, say they're dead. Quit saying that people are intellectually challenged. I know these people. They're dunderheads. Of course, an intelligent person wouldn't use a crude. These people are they're genetically not very well hung in the brain. There's something. But they would say we have got to call things in a more civilized, genteel fashion. And they're right. Except they'll finally catch up and they've got to rechange it. But you notice at the ordinary level, you and everybody else at the ordinary level will denounce it. That this is almost an intellectual fraud we're pulling on ourselves. Well, if it is, then fraud is the staff of life. How's that for not just changing, but making up metaphors in midstream? It's almost up to my ankles. It was a gardener's corollary to one. God almighty, look at all those. Well, thanks a lot. Here we got a poor Kyroot with maybe 50 words on it. We got about, I'm just guessing, about 35 corrections to spelling. Well, I'm not even going to try to read it. There was another corollary. It says, what ordinary minds are wont to bundle up in the words such as, well, it had to do, I guess I ought to say. It was referring back to this page, having to do with justice and fairness, just not in an accusatory, not in a slight sense, but the whole sense that everyone has at the ordinary street level, that life at times is not unjust, is not just, it's not fair. This one was, it was what the royal tutor had always wanted to tell the prince, which was, it is only those who want to help you. You remember that Kyroot, that all problems are caused by people trying to help. We hadn't repeated that in a long time, and no one's asked or wrote in to, would you please repeat that one? But every problem in life, in the secondary world, all problems are caused by somebody trying to help. The royal tutor wished that he could have told the prince at one time, "It is only those who wish to help you who will do you harm." Well, those are the ones that won't do you harm. Then, the addendum was, there are some things you simply cannot tell other people, particularly those things that you can't tell you. Then the corollary was, see, because think about that, we're at again to justice and fairness. What ordinary minds are wont to bundle up in the words justice and fairness are in physical fact, beyond the sounds, beyond the invisible words. The physical reality behind the words, the primary reality behind the words, is either one of two things. The armor that truth, that is reality, wears, or else the armor wears. In either case, but especially the second case, which I guess doesn't strike people as being particularly enlightening on the surface, but if you got armor wearing its own armor, you have got almost a bulletproof version of incest. I mean, you got something that's a protective device, and it's wearing what? A protective device. Or you find the protective device, which is the human personality, as it's normally called, the man's secondary world, you find this is some sort of defense mechanism or protection. Yes. And what's wearing it? Further protection. See, it does no good. You cannot put away the child abusers. You cannot put away those engaged in intellectual incest, because the only place you can put them is in an incestuous prison. The beauty, it was back in an earlier Kyroots that nobody asked, the beauty of the human mind is, if beasts, creatures of the primary world, knowing like when beasts and buildings collapse, they stay collapsed. When they trip and fall, they stay tripped and falled. But the human mind, before you can blink twice, is back on its feet and going. You can try to put it in jail for uncivilized behavior. You put it there, and the next thing you know, you turn around and the jail. Let's say you put, it's Gottlieb's is the uncivilized one that you're going to put away. And you put him away, and you turn around, and you look back, and the name of the prison is Gottlieb. Okay, good night.